So now you must typically had a issue where w- work, okay, your occupation was it was interfering with your occupation and you could not work on a consistent basis. You then actually providing you impairment where it is an issue for your financial abilities, your mental abilities, and also physical abilities. Well, that is no longer the case. So impairment of work is not a thing anymore. So I want you guys to understand that is being removed at 100% as well. Okay. So again, and that is again when we're talking about 100% mental health, 100% mental health, that is something that that a lot of veterans and many veterans deal with impact of their mental health. So that's a pretty severe, rating to receive. So again, that's something that we want to be very cognizant of. Not a typical. That's not a typical thing, but it is still removing the impingement of your work-related duties. Okay, so that is a change that's coming. Another change that is coming in is how mental health is rated. What are the symptoms? What are you focused on? What abilities do I have to um, effectively communicate to you to let you know that I'm dealing with mental health issues? Well, we have to be able to provide effects of your cognitive ability. Okay. And when we talk about your cognitive ability, I want you to understand that it affects the way you think. It's affecting your memory. It's affecting who you are as a person. Okay. Interpersonal relationships, family, friends, loved ones. Does it affect that? Well, if it does, how do you communicate that? Well, also, doesn't that affect your critical thinking, your abilities to actually solve problems and problem solving? So a lot of these things will actually become a very daunting issue. A regular task could be a very daunting issue for a veteran, and we can go down the pathway of explaining how. But we're not going to do that because I understand that a lot of veterans watch this channel, and with a lot of veterans watch this channel, I'm very sensitive to your needs. All right. So, also, when we're talking about our life activities and life abilities, how it is affecting your day to day. Okay. Your routine may not be a normal routine, but you think it is a normal routine because you've been dealing with it your entire life. Okay. Just because you don't speak about it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Vulnerability is going to be able to open up a space to get the support and help that you need. You can't change something that you don't speak about. So, opening that door to be able to help with those obsessive compulsive disorder issues that you may have, those broken relationships that you deal with, the sleep that you're missing out on every day. 4 hours of sleep every day is not healthy. I'm not a mental health professional, but I can understand what a veteran can deal with. So I'll tell you this again: self-care is very important. But I will tell you that a lot of the rating decision is going to be dependent upon your abilities of those formats: your cognitive, your interpersonal, your task completion, your life activities, and also care of self. And again, that is a regulation change. So there's different components of the regulation change. So there is Xing out 0%, no more 0%. It's 10% and more. Okay. Also, if you have an impairment of work and have been rated at 100%, that used to be a requirement. That's no longer a requirement to be able to receive 100% in mental health. You do not need a work impairment to be able to get to 100% rated disability for mental health. So, what are the symptomatology and domains that you must focus on to be able to make sure you convey the correct information to your physician to be able to get the mental health rating that you deserve? Those domains are going to be very important. We talked about, again, cognition. We talked about interpersonal relationships. We talked about task and task completions. We talk about life activities and skills. Very important. Very important. Conveying that information may make the difference of 30% to 70%. Open up, provide the information, and I'm sure you'll be successful.
Absolutely. No, great insight there, right? Great insight there. And so when you're providing the information and you're going for service connection for mental health, as you kind of unpack there, there's many different criteria, there's many different symptoms, there's many different diagnoses, right? So when you are looking to get connected for mental health, how are you kind of going to figure out whether, okay, is this predating service? Did this happen during service? Did this happen after service? And how does that impact your overall rating decision based on when it actually occurred and started?
Got it. For a service member, as of again, most veterans, and again, I say most, I'm not a determinant of what the sample size could be, but what I'm telling you is that veterans are put in hazardous circumstances or stressful circumstances on a regular basis. So, with them being placed in a circumstance, onset of a mental ailment typically is going to be during service. However, that does not exclude you from receiving service connection. Well, now we're talking about when you mentioned the mental health being before or after service. A lot of times, as veterans, we think that your ailment needs to transpire at sometimes during service. There's a lot of conditions that you don't necessarily need specific in service documentation for. This is one of them. Why? Because many mental health circumstances, most of the time, can or cannot be documented, such as, again, a stressful circumstance of PTSD, MST, or personal assault issues. So, therefore, if again, prior service, you were dealing with an ailment that could have been anxiety or bipolar disorder or some type of DSM, again, a mental health diagnosis. Well, what that's going to do, that is going to be able to provide you with simply a onset when it transpired. But now let me ask you, will your mental health get better or worse typically in service? So 9 times out of 10, the military could have possibly, again, possibly aggravated your condition beyond its normal progression. Now, how do you convey that? That is the key. You want to focus on how to convey how your issues have severely gotten worse. And how you do that is focusing on your onset and focusing on your symptoms throughout. And now, if we're talking about their after service, well, their after service, again, same focus, right? Onset, when did it develop? Why am I having distressing dreams of service? Why am I sleeping as I'm in a coffin rack? Why am I afraid every loud noise or event that transpires, but I'm never telling anyone, I'm never exposing that? Well, it will then transpire because you're dealing with a mental health element. I'm not here to diagnose you. Mr. Jones is not here to diagnose you or provide you a direction of what you're dealing with. You need to go seek treatment. But now, how did it start? So we focus on the onset that transpired in service. So these are the reasons that you could be possibly dealing with these things. So where does it stem from? What symptoms are you dealing with? How do we relate it to our military service and focusing on those three issues? That then will hopefully be able to support you through your mental health journey.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's great. And some other information we want to provide. I'm not sure if we want to just keep this in the community as well. Maybe so. But there's a new PTSD stressor form that's out, right? And being able to provide our listeners here with, how that is going to help factor into them being able to receive the highest compensable rating.
Well, that's really, really, really exciting. And why I say that, because I'm excited that other veterans are able to get the help that they need and it's outlined for them. A lot of times, many veterans really black out that information. Well, it looks as though that a PTSD stressor form was developed to be able to help and guide you to talk about the things that you may not want to talk about. But it also puts you in a position to be a little bit more detailed that you may have never thought that you would before. So the PTSD stressor form has been updated, and again, it is very extensive. And it's not a bad way. It's a good thing. It's a great thing. So let's really, celebrate the VA for doing that. We always talk, a lot of veterans always talk bad about the VA, about this experience, about that experience, about let's focus on the positive. That is a positive factor to be able to receive that actual PTSD stressor form. So we'll talk about it. We'll go through it. But I will tell you this at this component again. I mean, at this juncture, it is something that is built out to support, and we're going to go through every section and every nook and cranny of it because we're here to serve you guys on a continuous basis. Okay, so I'm really excited about that.
What Kenneth is actually referring to here is some great value he actually just provided for veteran community members and also our audio podcast listeners, right?